Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a huge storm that'll be impacting the United States today, and this storm is going to bring some significant severe weather. That includes damaging winds, large hail, and even a few tornadoes. In addition to this, we're watching for the threat of a winter storm that'll dump as much as 2 feet of snow in areas like the northern plains, the central plains, and even parts of the Midwest. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's hop right into what this storm is doing right now in the United States. And we will begin with the Great Plains, and notice this area is becoming very active. Obviously, over the last couple of days it's been dry, pretty sunny overall, really nice weather for both Friday and Saturday. That is all going to change though today. A lot of cloud cover right now streaming across the Great Plains. In addition to this, our low pressure system is beginning to organize over in the Central Plains, and once that becomes more organized over the next few hours, we are eventually going to see an increase of snowfall across the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Central Plains. And in addition to that, there will be a threat of severe weather, which will begin to increase, especially across areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for today. And that'll be primarily this afternoon into the evening hours, and we'll be doing a full detailed breakdown on this here in just a minute. And then back over on the East Coast, things all drying out anywhere along the East Coast. Much nicer weather. It has been a very active last 48 hours with lots of snow, as much as 2 feet of snow fell in areas like New England. All that snow is moving out. We're done with that, and it's going to be nice weather overall as we go throughout the next few days, but it will be a little bit on the chilly side for those in New England and as well as the Northeast. Now, there are lots of watches and warnings across the country at the time recording this forecast, and those will continue, by the way, all the way throughout today and tomorrow. We have tons of winter storm warnings in effect in the northern plains, winter storm watches, winter weather advisories, you name it. There's something for you back up in the northern plains and even the upper Midwest, and those do extend, by the way, into Wisconsin. We even have a little sliver of blizzard warnings back over in northeast parts of Minnesota. Now, something that's a little bit more concerning that I'm not going to talk about a whole lot in this video, but I'm going to mention it here, is that there will be some high winds today all across the Great Plains, primarily though in the central and southern plains. Wind gusts as high as 55 to 60 miles per hour will be possible in this area, so definitely make sure that you are protecting any plants outside that could get damaged from high winds. Protect loose line items, bring those inside, and also make sure you're hatching down trampolines because those could go flying today. We do have a medium risk for flying trampolines in the central and southern plains due to the fact that wind gusts will be very high. And by the way, this wind is not coming from the severe weather today, so just keep that in mind. This is entirely separate. It's all happening for the most part before that severe weather happens. It's going to be a very windy day overall across the Great Plains. So overall for today, it's going to be a very snowy day across the northern plains and even back into the upper Midwest. Areas like Wisconsin and even northern Michigan will be getting some snowfall. Notice back over in the central and southern plains, that's where we're watching for severe weather. And again, I'm gonna have a detailed breakdown on this in just a moment, so make sure you're staying tuned. And also, we might even be going live for this today, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Once we go late this evening into the overnight hours, this low pressure system will begin to slowly move east. This will allow for snow to actually extend further down to the west and as well as further down to the south, and areas like the Texas Panhandle even we'll see a little bit of snowfall overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. That'll also extend all the way back up into the Michigan Panhandle. And then once we go into Monday afternoon and evening, the storm moves to the east. Severe weather will be possible across areas in the lower Mississippi Valley, including East Texas back through Mississippi, and eventually snow will be continuing across areas like Nebraska back into Minnesota, and eventually into Tuesday that severe weather threat will be low but not zero across the southeast, primarily for Alabama and as well as Georgia. And then once we go into Wednesday morning, the storm is out of here. And good news, by the way, I don't see any other large storms on the horizon as we go into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this upcoming week. Eventually, as we go into early April, things will be changing a lot more as severe weather will become a much more common thing. So obviously, we'll be watching for that. But for now, nothing really beyond this storm that we're talking about, at least through about Saturday or so. Now, let's talk more about that severe weather potential for the next couple of days. We have a severe weather risk today and then another one tomorrow. So 2 different days that we're watching for. There's a very low end risk again for Tuesday, but we're not really going to talk too much about that. The main 2 days are today and tomorrow. We do have a slight risk of severe weather for parts of the Central Plains. This includes areas in Kansas and as well as northern Oklahoma. This is a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. That means it's a low to medium risk of severe weather. The main concern is going to be damaging winds, large hail, and also a couple of tornadoes will be possible. Make sure that you have a tornado action plan in place just in case there are any tornado warnings. In addition to this, damaging winds and large hail will be possible. A little bit more of a conditional risk of severe weather for Texas and into southern Oklahoma. The main concern here, if any storms do fire up, will be large hail, but I will not rule out an isolated tornado. If any of these storms are able to rotate enough, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle, though, I think, down that far down to the south. And the damaging wind risk will be primarily across central Kansas and northern Oklahoma, but again, that could be possible anywhere across this entire risk region, including the marginal and slight risk of severe weather. Large hail threat pretty much in the same area. Tornado risk is a little bit interesting in my opinion. Yes, I do think the greatest tornado risk will be in central and northern Oklahoma back into southern Kansas, but there is that conditional risk of a tornado, maybe an isolated tornado or two. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw maybe an isolated tornado closer to central Texas, like Abilene area. Wouldn't be impossible to see something like that, so we may see an extension with that. At least at the time I'm recording this forecast, that area is not included in a very low 2% probability for a tornado risk. We will be diving into the timing in just a moment on today's risk, but also going to tomorrow, we have another slight risk of severe weather, and this does include areas in the lower Mississippi Valley. Wouldn't be a little bit surprised if that marginal threat went a little bit further up to the north in the next outlook, but regardless of that, damaging winds is going to be the main concern across the lower Mississippi Valley. There is a little bit of an increased tornado risk as well across this entire area, so Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and East Texas all be on alert for the isolated tornado risk going into tomorrow. There's also a little sneaky marginal threat of severe weather in western Iowa. Really not too concerning in my opinion. Maybe some isolated damaging winds, maybe a brief large hailstorm. I don't think there will be much of a tornado risk though there. Maybe a very, very low tornado risk. Maybe like a brief tornado at worst case scenario, but again, very low risk overall. Damaging wind risk again, primarily across those in the lower Mississippi Valley. Tornado risk right now is a 5% probability. Wouldn't be surprised if this was upgraded in a future outlook, and that is mainly contingent on if there are any discrete supercells that fire off ahead of the line of storms that's going to be impacting areas in the lower Mississippi Valley during the daytime on Monday. I'll show you what that means here in just a moment on the future radar. All right, let's go into what the Central Plains will be talking about with severe weather for today. Notice this morning into the afternoon hours, mostly just rain across these areas. None of this will be severe. By the time we get closer to about 4 to 5 o'clock, that is when the first supercells will fire off right across western Oklahoma. These will quickly fire off, moving to the east, producing the threat of large hail and maybe an isolated tornado or two. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, those storms are moving across Kansas. By 8 to 9, most of these storms are not severe. So really overall, this is a very quick event. It's not going to last very long here in the Central Plains. It's going to be maybe 3 to 4 hours for a severe weather event, and then we're done. Back down in the Southern Plains, though, and the Mississippi Valley, it's going to be a much longer event overall, and the main reason why is because areas in North Texas will be dealing with 2 different rounds of storms. The first one's a little bit more conditional, maybe an isolated supercell or two across north central Texas right around about 6 to 8 o'clock this evening. The second round of storms, though, fires off right behind that. A line of storms will fire off right around 10 to 11 o'clock. This is mostly going to be strong storms. I don't think there will be a whole lot of severe weather here, but damaging winds and an isolated tornado will be possible. By the time we go into tomorrow morning, that line of storms moves to the east. Notice how this is not really that impressive of a line of storms. I think overall, maybe some isolated damaging winds and maybe a couple of tornadoes possible during the morning. By the afternoon, those storms continue to move to the east, and if we get any discrete supercells to fire off in front of the line of storms, I do think there will be a little bit more of an elevated tornado risk with those, but that is a big contingency on if that actually happens. By the time we go into the evening hours, storms continue to move to the east with, again, mainly the threat of damaging winds, maybe even a couple of storms behind that. We'll also have to watch those closely, but overall severe weather should be on the low side of things if those also develop. In case you're wondering about snow accumulation, this is what the Central Plains will be looking at here over the next 48 hours or so. Notice most of the snowfall is going to be across areas in western Kansas, where many areas will pick up 1 to 5 inches of snow. Few locations from northwest Kansas back into northern Nebraska will be picking up anywhere from about 4 to 14 inches of snow. So be ready for that. A lot of snow is ahead. Back over in areas like the northern plains in Minnesota, this is where the boatload of the snow is going to fall, or really the bulk of it will fall across northern Nebraska back into Minnesota. Many areas around a foot of snow. A few isolated locations could get close to 2 feet of snow. And also back over in areas like northern Wisconsin, that is where we're also going to be talking about the potential for 4 to 12 inches of snow across those areas. A few locations as far south as northern Illinois will pick up around a coating of snow, but really nothing to write home about there. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.